My name is Richard Hastings, and I am an MSW candidate at Wichita State University. My presentation today is a shift in mentality and will be focusing on the effects of zero tolerance in schools and solutions to help decrease the negative outcomes that come with zero tolerance. So, school to prison pipeline is a set of policies and procedures that drive our nation's school children into a pathway that begins with schools and ends with the criminal justice system. This was caused in part by zero tolerance policies that are in many schools across America. Zero tolerance policies in schools require administration to hand out specific and consistent punishments for certain behaviors that happen at the school. The consequences are given to students are usually harsh and involving either suspension or expulsion, and can sometimes be misconduct issues that are relatively minor. Restorative justice is an alternative solution to zero tolerance that focuses on building communication skills and providing struggling youth with the open space to grow rather than be punished. I chose this topic because of my background experience as a corrections officer and then a mental health worker at the juvenile detention facility here in town. I spent a great deal of time with youth that were failed by the school system and gained a large amount of insight of the effects that has. I then transitioned to McAdams Academy, which is an alternative school that focuses on taking expelled students to ensure that students will continue to gain an education and build social and emotional skills and have somewhere to be during that expulsion time frame and keep them, off the streets and out of trouble. The importance of an education for a student cannot be understated, and a social worker is in the unique position to intercept a student who is on the school to prison pathway. Incarceration rates in America are very high, and America only makes up 4.4% of the population of the world, but houses around 22% of the world's prisoners. When it comes to when a child is brought into the system, it is extremely difficult for them to get out. Students of color, LGBTQ, and students with disabilities are affected by the school to prison pipeline at a significantly higher rate than white students. The three main challenges that tie into this topic are ensure healthy development for youth, promote smart decarceration, and achieve equal opportunity and justice. Problems that range from anxiety, depression, alcohol, tobacco, and drug use, delinquent and violent behavior, dropping out of schools, risky sexual activities, and unwanted pregnancies contribute to behavioral health problems in young youth. The goal of social work should be to prevent as many of these behavioral health problems before they even emerge. By catching these early and addressing them properly, we can lower the number of incarcerations and make an effort to address the inconsistent rate of suspensions and expulsions of white students compared to black, LGBTQ, and students with disabilities. So, according to a study conducted in Texas, nearly 10% of students with at least one disciplinary conduct dropped out of school, as compared to the 2% of students with no disciplinary actions. Data from the Department of Education Office for Civil Rights shows that black students are suspended and expelled at a rate 3 times greater than their white peers. Similarly, students with disabilities are more than twice as likely to receive out of school suspensions as students with no disabilities, and LGBTQ youth are more likely than their peers to be suspended or expelled. So I'm going to talk about the empowerment theory, and because it works with restorative justice and they kind of walk hand in hand. Um, the 5-step model of empowerment theory starts with identifying the problem, which typically is the cause of the suspension or expulsion. Define the strengths, set goals, implement interventions, and evaluate success on a collaborative level. Restorative justice follows a similar blueprint by gathering the parties involved and explaining the different sides. The goal of restorative justice is to find a common ground of understanding and being able to discuss ways to use shared experience to build a relationship and come up with interventions to ensure that all parties involved can continue with a healthy relationship. And of course, I would be lying if I said that every intervention works on the first time, because it doesn't. But it's the evaluation and collaboration that makes restorative justice so effective. Understanding does not come from the first try, but it is the consistency and follow through that creates strong levels of bonding that these kids really need. And empowerment theory leads directly into the pillars of advanced journalist practice. The two that I want to focus on are empowerment and social justice. The empowerment piece of restorative justice is all about giving these students the opportunity to build communication skills and provide them with the tools to advocate for themselves. Many of the suspensions and expulsions stem from miscommunication from a student with another student or teacher and students. As a social worker, we can create that open space that will lead to communication and lead to healing, as opposed to sending a student home with a written note explaining why they were suspended. A suspension is not going to stop the problem from happening again, but instead just delay it long enough for the other students and the teacher to just get a quick breather in. All 9 core competencies have a space in this presentation, but the ones I really want to focus on are engage diversity and difference in practice, engage with individual families, groups, and organizations and communities, and intervene with individual families, groups, organizations, and communities. A large focus of this presentation has been about changing mentality of zero tolerance, and applying different practice with a diverse population. By engaging with the individuals, families, groups, and organizations and communities, social workers can use client-centered perspective to work towards a common goal. This means being able to understand personal biases and work to set those aside for the population you are serving. And in order to be able to catch students on the prison to school to prison path, the final competency in this PowerPoint is vital and interventions and enhance the student, and they will enhance the student's health and education. When it comes to social work values, there's not one specific value that jumps out as the most important, because all 6 hold a very important component to this presentation. We are serving students who, in many cases, are a diverse population, and though the services we provide, through the services we provide, we work towards social justice and push for dignity and worth of each individual we work with. Being able to understand the importance of building those communication skills will help bring together students and teachers as a social worker. And as a social worker, we must understand our biases if we are to properly serve this population. So, as I wrap up my presentation, I want to tell you about a child who did not have a father. Mother left him when he was 3, and he had a difficult time dealing with his anger. School was not important to him at a young age, but after some guidance from some adult figures at his school, he grew to change the world. That kid's name was Sir Isaac Newton. His story is a unique story, and I'm not suggesting that every child is destined to change the world, but we have an opportunity to help them achieve their fullest potential. The old saying, children are our future, is still around to this day because it reigns true. Zero tolerance is a short-term solution with long-term consequences. Using restorative justice and teaching students how to communicate and work through problems not only helps lower suspensions and expulsions, but also will help to create a better generation of students with the tools to work through problems and create a better future for themselves and people around them. So here's a link to my references, and I want to thank you for taking the time to listen to my presentation. Are there any questions?